Hello and welcome to this video. I owed this video to my audience who have supported me so much and given me the courage to pursue my ambition of educating people about key technologies and high income skills. This video took a lot of time since I wanted to keep things very simple so that anyone with zero knowledge of microeconomics or macroeconomics can also understand the content presented in this video. So please share it with your friends, colleagues and relatives and anyone who can understand English language. So in this video, first of all, we will look at the current economic difficulties which many countries are facing. We will look into the historic context of things and the way hyperinflation has caused major problems in the past. Also, we will have a look at the two most important human emotions, which are fear and certainty. And we will see how they have been used by politicians to fulfill their own ambitions and designs. Furthermore, we will also see how our own desire for certainty and stability motivates us to believe the promises that are made by politicians and actually work against us in long term, since the only way governments can fulfill them is via printing money or else support industries that might bring in cash and keep people employed in developed countries but are actually devastating for the economies of other countries. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Sabil Khan. I'm a blockchain expert, business strategist, and an award-winning scientist. So as we know that the hyperinflation in Argentina has been devastating for the life of people over there. And same is the case of Venezuela. But if you think that it is just that the governments in these countries might be corrupt or something else might be going on over there, which is the root cause of the problems in these countries, please think twice. Because looking at the macroeconomic situation of the world through the lens of pragmatism, I think that UK, USA and other developed countries might be on the brink of experiencing something similar. So here is a report from Al Jazeera which covers the economic crisis in Argentina, and you can see how devastating it has been for the life of people over there.
Argentina's economic emergency. It's now the world's riskiest sovereign borrower behind Venezuela. Its currency, the peso, has halved in value this year versus the dollar. The country already has the highest interest rates in the world and is on financial life support. The president is cutting government spending and the IMF is trying to accelerate a record $50 billion loan. But will these extraordinary measures work?
The peso has devaluated 100% in the past year, and that has had huge consequences in the poor neighborhoods of Buenos Aires.
The impact of the devaluation of the peso on food prices is something that worries those who are trying to help those in need. This year, the prices of food have already increased around 30%, something that makes it difficult for people living here to buy some basic food items like bread, pasta, and meat.
The government of Mauricio Macri is struggling to prevent an economic collapse and has announced austerity measures to reduce the fiscal deficit. Macri had acknowledged poverty rates are on the rise and announced he will give extra cash handouts for the poor. But Eduardo Donza says much more needs to be done.
Stopping inflation is crucial right now, but that's not going to solve everything. There has to be an increase in local production to generate jobs, and for that we need to see a creation of state policies and a government that has the clarity and humility to call on all sectors to cooperate.
The possibility of further rises in household basics have many in Argentina fearing for the future. In the meantime, there are those who are suffering the consequences of the crisis right now.
So as we have seen in the past, after World War I, Germany could not pay the reparations. To get their money, the French marched into the rear German industrial area. To prevent the French from getting money, they asked the workers to go on strike. This is called passive resistance. The German government did not have any money to pay the workers, so they just printed more. Businesses raised their prices as money was not worth the paper it was written on. Wages then increased to keep up with the prices. This meant the government needed to print more money. The more money they printed, the more it diluted its value. Eventually, money became worthless. This is called hyperinflation. What were the effects of hyperinflation on German people? So, the workers' wages got higher and higher, but the prices of food went up higher than people's wages. So, one German worker wrote, "My salary was just enough to buy one loaf and a small piece of cheese." So, many people queued for food, while many others starved. Those on fixed incomes suffered the most. As prices went up, their wages stayed the same. Their wages were too low to live on. So money was just worthless. So they burned it to keep warm. Children played with money like it was a toy, and some people even threw it away. In the end, inflation was so bad that normal businesses and trade became impossible, which caused high unemployment. So, who did the ordinary people blame for this situation? So, they blamed the problems on the Weimar government, who had signed the Treaty of Versailles. So, the government was actually unable to deal with this situation, and due to that, the Nazi party got power. So, the German establishment printed currency into oblivion, which is called Weimar Inflation. This robbed people of their wealth, and people were in need of a new hope, new promise, and new system which will take them out of that emotional pain of worrying about day-to-day struggle of paying for commodities and bills. And we know what happened as a result of that. So it was all about a party leveraging fear and uncertainty of masses that was rooted in economic crisis that was ultimately underpinned by inflation, or simply stating printing money out of proportion. So if you think that stimulus checks in USA, the loans issued by the UK governments to the entrepreneurs under the bounce back loan schemes or CBILS scheme, along with other measures which they have taken to artificially avoid a bear market and feed the promises that they made before elections to keep masses happy and at the same time keep themselves in power or in office, meaning getting elected again in elections, is justified, please think twice. You must understand that money once printed, once the supply of the money is increased, it will eventually inflate the housing prices, the prices of commodities and other things that we need for survival. So the whole idea of socialist, pseudo-socialist, or let's say socialist capitalist cocktail, which is installed in many societies in the West, is based on the false promises of politicians which cannot be kept or sustained in the long term. These promises include artificial entitlement to facilities which cannot be sustained purely by tax revenue and can only be supported or sustained by endless printing of money. So I firmly believe that all of that will eventually converge to the same nightmare, as we have seen in the past again and again. For example, in the form of Weimar inflation and currently in countries like Venezuela, Argentina, and also the same phenomena is going on in Turkey. So remember that if you are a worker in a government office where you are doing some repetitive tasks each day, there is a 90% chance that your tasks will be fully automated with software technologies like distributed ledger technology or other advancements like Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. So in essence, the government will keep you employed for your repetitive tasks as long as it can print money and artificially avoid bear markets and hyperinflation, and you, who is hiding behind the security net provided to you by the government in the form of a job that you think will last forever till your grave or forever, you are delusional. So that security is a false promise, and when the rotten structure collapses, and when your monthly stipend is worth 2 rolls of toilet paper, you are the one who will cry the most because you have not accumulated any assets because of your low salary. And you assume that the life will keep on going on smoothly as it is right now. So you trusted the certainty provided to you by the socialist daycare. But once that belief is shattered and the fear creeps in, the life can suddenly turn into a nightmare. And the problem is that when a huge portion of population has confined their minds to the false idea of economic security which is based on money printing that feeds that monster of security. It is a ticking time bomb. So it has happened in the past, it is happening right now in many countries, and it will keep on happening in every country with fiat monetary system until a new system replaces that outdated monetary and political system. So here is the situation in India, where many public sector workers have gone on strike because of an uncertain future and the fear of losing their so-called permanent jobs.
On January 8, 2020, around 250 million Indian workers are all set to go on a national strike. This is probably the largest ever strike in the country's history, and maybe even in any country across the world. The Modi government has launched an all-out war against the working class. The government is carrying forward a policy of mass privatization, underfunding of the public sector, and dilution of labor laws. According to data from the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, the unemployment rate in the Indian economy was almost 10% at the end of September 2019, a record 45-year high. Unemployment among youth between the ages of 20 and 29 has increased by 73% over the last 2 years. There has been a sharp decline in the purchasing power of common people because of rising unemployment, stagnant wages, and the increasing cost of necessities. At the same time, there is also a huge hike in prices. Cereals, pulses, cooking oils, and the big three vegetables, that is potatoes, onions, and tomatoes, are staples throughout India. The prices of most of these items are soaring. Wheat prices are up by 56% and flour by 26%. Potato prices have shot up by 67% and onion prices have increased 5 times. Despite clueless and desperate measures by the government, like importing some onions, nothing is changing. Data shows that in November 2019, food inflation was 8.66%, compared with the general inflation of 5.54%. Along with record levels of unemployment and stagnating wages, this back-breaking price rise is destroying the lives of working families.
So people need to raise their level of consciousness and awareness for sure. But I think that a time will definitely come where a person working in a factory making weapons in developed countries will click on a button and will know exactly where the bulk of these weapons which are manufactured in that factory have been used for in the past. So he will know where the weapons currently manufactured by this factory will be sold to potentially in the future.
Hewlett-Packard, or HP, is commonly known for making computer products, but many of the programs and sales come from military and security deals. For instance, in 2012, HP was awarded a $249 million contract from the U.S. Army to deploy private cloud services. Currently, HP has several military contracts to supply the U.S. military with computing devices and displays, adding up to millions of more dollars in sales. HP is one of the largest providers of information technology equipment and services, supplying individual, business, and government clients around the world. It was the 41st largest arms selling and the 19th largest corporation in 2015. Kia is mainly known as a South Korean car manufacturer. Although Kia was established in 1944, it was appointed as Korea's defense industry firm in 1973. Since then, Kia Motors has been the sole research institute for developing Korean military vehicles. Kia makes a wide variety of military vehicles, including LTVs, or light tactical vehicles, deuce and a halves like their cargo trucks and special equipment vehicles, 5 tons like their tractor vehicles, and even 15-ton wrecker vehicles and more. Kia supplies military vehicles to more than 25 countries around the world: Indonesia, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Haiti, Brazil, and Mali are just to name a few. They have plans to become one of the world's leading manufacturers by 2020. Mitsubishi is part of a group of autonomous Japanese multinational companies called Mitsubishi Group, which works in a variety of industries. One group is the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which has a wide scope of products dealing in space, automotive, environment, and others. But one of the areas is defense, where they make everything from special vehicles, naval warships, defense aircrafts, defense engines, and even guided weapon systems, or what we would call missiles or bombs. Rolls-Royce is known as a British car manufacturer. The company's main business divisions are civil aerospace, defense aerospace, marine, and energy. It's important to note that Rolls-Royce is the 16th largest arms seller in the world. They make engines for all types of military products, combat jets, helicopters, tactical aircrafts, and even UAV military drones. They are also a part of a joint venture in the United Kingdom to develop a new class of nuclear-armed submarines. Rolls-Royce has had military ties dating back to World War II, where they made the Merlin engine, called the Meteor, developed for the Cromwell tank. Today, they are a world provider of equipment and supplies products and services to over 70 navies around the world. Together with Babcock Marine and BAE Systems, the Marine Division of Rolls-Royce launched the Future Submarines (FSM) project in 2007. The goal of this project is the development of a successor, a new class of nuclear missile submarines for the Royal Navy, replacing the current Vanguard-class Marines armed with Trident nuclear ballistic missiles. Rolls-Royce also manufactures combat jet engines, like the Integrated Lift Fan Propulsion System, or LIFT system for short, which is used in Lockheed Martin's F-35 Lightning II fighter jet. A quick side note, the F-35 program is the world's most expensive military program, costing more than $1 trillion, and suffers from hundreds of deficiencies and won't be ready for full combat testing until 2019. Another engine product is the AE1107, which is used in the Bell Boeing V-22 Ospreys. You may have seen Ospreys in the news for constantly crashing. Rolls-Royce also makes engine systems for unmanned aerial vehicles like the AE3007, which powers the Northrop Grumman Global Hawk drone. A consideration for the Global Hawk is that it costs approximately $30,000 per flight hour, on par with stealth fighter jets, and each drone requires an hour of maintenance for every hour it spends in the air. In conclusion, these companies definitely have their hands dirty in the killing of innocent civilians in our illegal wars in the past 16 years, if not longer. They literally profit from war and should be criticized on their part in this system of perpetual war. It's not their sons and daughters who fight and die in these wars, and every time one of their civilian products are purchased by customers, that money goes to benefit their defense sectors as well.
So instead of behaving like monkeys in the zoo created by politicians and this outdated system, we definitely need to raise our level of awareness and cautiousness. And blockchain technology will play a key role in that transition because it will make sure that every transaction, big or small, products and services exchanged or sold as a result of a transaction and other particulars related to these transactions are stored on a public immutable ledger and leaves little to no room for corruption. So in that case, there will be no room for politicians to dodge the questions, and governments can be automatically blacklisted and thrown out of power if they cause inflation, sell weapons to terrorist countries that don't respect our values just to keep people employed in those factories and for keeping themselves in office. That automated accountability based on artificial intelligence and blockchain technology will result in transparency, which will shape our society forever. So when all such records will be available on a public immutable ledger, it will forge a new era where we will free ourselves from the demons of our own self-interest, craving for power, and leverage the suffering of others for our own political gains. So looking at the broader scheme of things, blockchain technology and artificial intelligence is an antidote when it is used correctly against many, if not all, of the problems that cause economic collapse. So the blockchain technology and artificial intelligence will mitigate the unlawful and unethical printing of money and giving people the awareness to challenge and weed out their false beliefs. And it will also bind all the humans together to co-innovate for the greater good of humanity. These and some other advantages of blockchain technology are highlighted very well in this presentation.
So yes, so first of all, I want to talk about trust. I think the figure there is quite stark. A 17-year all-time low, and that's not just in corporate sectors and you know, the big banks, for example. That is across the globe, even in charity sectors and social enterprise. And things like blockchain, with the ability to embed trust, can make a real difference here. So I wanted to kind of bring the context around this trust issue and what we need to do to resolve that. Classic examples there don't really need much explanation, but really big names in very different fields all are suffering from this lack of trust. Again, in terms of challenges, we've got issues with power. The electricity one there, 85% of the world's population does not have full access that is affordable, reliable or clean. There's 15% there, it's a staggering number. And again, around food supply, I spent a lot of time out in Mexico and also in Brazil looking at food supply chains, looking at ethical food supply chain and what's happening. People are not being able to earn their full capacity for what they're growing. So we've got problems from the bottom line where farmers are growing crops, then getting to the end producer where things have been taken away, when the money has been lost, and when trees, for example, have been destroyed in the process of growing. So oud is a fantastic example. I've spent time in the MENA region in particular, and we don't always see so much of this in the US and the UK, but it's a substance that has amazing qualities. So it comes from the aguila tree, and at the moment, most of the time, to actually create that reaction, you have to basically have an infection in the bark to produce this particular oil. It can be used for cancer care, some amazing results from that. There's a stack of research papers I can share that are really showing the benefits there, but also it's used for things like perfumes and well-being, and actually the wood itself is used for decoration. But at the moment, that's an illegal trade of the whole industry is $10 to $20 billion a year. At the moment, about 50% is illegal. People are learning a fraction of what they're worth at the bottom line. And so if you look at that all the way along the supply chain, can't see a better application of blockchain. And also, as it says there, food fraud, again, another massive problem, and people are losing out at every stage. So I mentioned earlier about the Sustainable Development Goals, something incredibly close to my heart, and I'm a co-chair of something called Frontier 3000 that's coming out of the UN. It's encouraging more inclusion and diversity, but also scaling up social impact projects across the world, hence what I was doing there the other week. And as part of that, I've got a particular focus around supply chains, looking at transparency, looking at things around trade and how we can make that right for all parties that are involved, and also looking at things like making things truly accountable and traceable. Again, blockchain, but also in integration with other technologies is a fantastic way to do that at every stage across the line.
And that is not all. Many governments and central banks print money out of thin air and buy assets with it in the form of shares in companies, etc. And that is the most unethical thing that can be done, since on one hand you are printing more money to dilute the value of money by increasing its supply, and on the other hand they buy assets with the same money which they printed out of thin air, for which a person or a private company had to create real value. So the whole game is rigged. So this simply means that the whole economic system is rigged, and the toilet paper for which we work day and night can actually be created out of thin air too. And the people in most of the countries are actually fighting a lost battle to retain the value of their hard-earned money, which is diluted by their own government, and also at the same time they can print money out of thin air and buy assets with that, which is the worst form of theft that can ever happen in the world. And the tragedy is that most of the people don't know about that, or don't want to know about that, or actually are not interested to know about that. So I believe that cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, and artificial intelligence have a key role to play in our future, and Bitcoin as well as other cryptocurrencies with finite supply and absolute transparency will block even the slightest of chance to execute such unethical actions. I hope that you liked the content in this video. Thank you very much for your time. And if you think that the content in this video was valuable, please subscribe to this channel, hit the notifications bell, and I will see you in the next video.